All right. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Regional Council Summit for Building Bright Futures. My name is Dr. Morgan Crossman, and I'm the Executive Director of BBF, and we're really excited to bring our partners together today, specifically to celebrate the accomplishments and the work of regional councils and the work of our partners across the state as we think about this big, broad network of partners coming together monthly. Today is a really exciting opportunity for our regional councils across the state to see themselves as a network, right? So we have 12 regional councils that are coming together monthly to tackle the really challenging needs of kids and families and figuring out and strategizing how to meet those needs. And we want to be sure that we're able to provide you with that network, that ability to connect with each other. Because the work is fundamental to the work of the broader Building Bright Futures Network and to Vermont families. This meeting today is also our opportunity to say thank you and express our sincerest gratitude for the work that you are doing so tirelessly in the pandemic to meet the needs of kids and families in our system. So thank you so much. And because I want to do a little bit of celebration myself, I want to call out a couple of the unique projects that we've seen in some of the major initiatives. So I want to reference some of the amazing equity work that we've seen in Bennington, focused on gender inclusive skills and practices for pre-K educators and those that are working with young children with Outright Vermont, or some of the incredible work in Franklin Grand Isles Council in reducing barriers around transportation, and really working to make sure that everybody has equitable access to meeting their basic needs. Another really amazing spotlight I want to call out is Southeast Vermont's promotion of child development for parents and using accessible language and concrete activities through the basics. And I think that there are so many amazing examples that we could call out, and I really hope to hear those from our regional council partners today to celebrate those accomplishments and to share how you're strategizing throughout today's meeting. So a quick overview of today's agenda. We are going to start with a mindful moment, which is a standard practice at Building Bright Futures. You'll hear some opening remarks from our Deputy Director, Beth Trisansky, and from one of our regional managers, Ellen. And we're going to break out into small groups. And the purpose of today is that discussion, right? It's about talking about some of the biggest challenges and needs identified by our regional councils in thinking about how we're improving access and outcomes for kids and families. And then the last piece is I will be moderating a roundtable discussion with leaders from multiple levels of our network to talk about their involvement with the network and how it informs their ability to make decisions and their hopes for the future of our system. And then we'll close with celebrations and reflections by our regional managers. So to get us started, I would like to invite Darla to lead our mindful moment. Thank you for being with us.
Hello, everyone. So I'm Darla Senecal, Regional Manager here at Building Bright Futures, and I cover Addison, Rutland, and Bennington counties. And I'm going to lead you through our mindful moment. So if it's comfortable for you, you can leave your camera on or you're invited to turn it off. And now we're going to practice a short breathing exercise that may allow you to step out of automatic mode and reconnect with the present moment. So find a comfortable upright position and either close your eyes or focus on a point in front of you. Take a deep breath in and bring yourself into this present moment. Just noticing whatever you're experiencing right now. What are the sensations? Is there discomfort or tension? Notice your feet on the ground or whatever you're sitting on. Feel your clothes against your body and the air against your skin. And now notice whatever is in your mind, whatever thoughts are there. And as best you can, just observe those thoughts as they're in your mind right now. Be aware of whatever you're feeling emotionally. Don't try to change it, but just notice it. Notice how you're feeling. And now bring your attention to your breath. Feel the rise and fall of your stomach as you breathe in and as you breathe out. Notice the cool air flowing in through your nose as you inhale and the warm air as you exhale over and over again. If you find your mind wandering away from your breath, simply bring it back with no judgment. Enjoy each breath in and out as they follow one after the other. And now allow your awareness to expand and encompass your breath, moving in and out of your body, bringing your awareness to your thinking and whatever you're feeling right now. Gently broaden this, holding everything in awareness. Continue breathing deeply. And now, after one more breath, wiggle your fingers and toes. Gently open your eyes and see what's around you. What can you hear? Take a moment to push your feet into the ground and have a stretch and a big exhale. Now, please return your attention back to the Zoom room. Welcome back, and thank you for participating in that mindful moment. I'd like to introduce Beth Trisansky and Ellen Tesh as they will take us through the next portion of our meeting.
Thank you, Darla. I needed that. Welcome. My name is Beth Trisansky. I'm the Deputy Director at Building Bright Futures. I also served as the Chittenden Regional Coordinator for a couple of years in 2014 to 2018. It's great to see so many of you here today. Help us get to know each other by making an introduction in the chat bar. We would love to hear your name, your region, your organization, and if you're a parent of a child under 8. Someone on the BBF team can put those directions in the link, but we would love to see who's here. And also important to recognize that you are all part of the BBF network, early childhood network of over 450 early childhood and cross-sector leaders. So thank you for being here today. You may not see this full network often. I am consistently impressed by the commitment of early childhood partners who are deeply committed to improving the system. Our BBF statewide network infrastructure consists of 12 regional councils, 7 Vermont Early Childhood Action Plan committees, and the State Advisory Council. These meetings are all open to the public, and you're invited to join other meetings if you're curious what's happening at a different part of the network, and happy to help you figure out what else is out there that might interest you. Together, the entire BBF network is responsible for upholding the vision and strategic plan we call the Vermont Early Childhood Action Plan. BBF regional councils regularly participate in efforts to gather information from the broader community to inform policy and practice, both at the regional and state level. Let me give you one quick example about how this network works and functions, moving from an issue to a policy recommendation, and really being able to inform our whole system. One issue that really stands out for me is workforce. Workforce is a clear challenge impacting how we serve children and families. At regional councils, I'm sure you've heard it, I certainly have, that at regional councils, we hear this from childcare providers, from mental health providers, school partners, to name just a few, who are all struggling to both retain and recruit staff. And we know that it is impacting how you serve kids and families. Regional councils are using a range of strategies to address this issue. For example, the Northern Windsor and Orange Council is hosting an information gathering process about workforce recruitment and retention. The Rutland Regional Council is creating a recruitment video featuring the many benefits that come with working as an early childhood educator. And the Lamoille Valley Regional Council is in the first phase of offering a course designed to support and train individuals that are interested in this work as a career. In fact, 7 of the 12 regional councils identified workforce as one of their top 2 priorities. So you can see the theme, and then it still carries through the rest of our network. So in addition to this work at regional council levels, the topic has been a focus at the Early Learning and Development Committee, which is one of the VCAP committees I mentioned earlier. It is also prominent in the State Advisory Council policy recommendations and informs policymaking that we've seen over the last year, such as H171 or Act 45, which passed the legislature last session. The focus from regions is also why this topic is featured at State Advisory Council meetings. In fact, the SAC meeting 2 months ago featured workforce, and the topic will also be a spotlight in this year's State of Vermont's Children Report, which will be available in January. So you can see that the workforce crisis is one that is larger than any one of us can address. Yet when we work together, we can make some good kind of trouble and affect the change that we know children and families in our communities need. So I want to thank you for your work and for being part of this powerful network. Ellen?
Hi everyone, I'm Ellen and I'm a regional manager in Southeast Vermont, Springfield, Northern Windsor and Orange, and Central Vermont. And it's so great to see so many familiar faces. I feel like it's a little bit of a reunion. I just want to say I'm so grateful for all of my regional council partners and the regional council members across the state. You are truly the eyes and ears of the needs of families and the amazing work that's going on locally. The only way this whole system works is to know what is going on the ground and to provide that insight to those of us who don't have those direct interactions. So the work of the regional councils, it goes beyond like what actually happens in the hour and a half meeting that we have once a month. It's all the subcommittee work or the work that you do with collaborating partners that includes us and others. And it's also making sure that you are the voice of young children and families across the region and the state. And so truly thank you for coming to the council meetings, but also the other work that you do. And you're what makes this job fun. Like you're the ones that help us to see what's going on and make sure we're making a difference. The network doesn't work without you. We've done so many amazing things this year. Just to highlight a couple, Springfield, Central Vermont, and the Northeast Kingdom Councils have focused on family engagement and support by providing opportunities for safe, family-friendly activities and resources to enhance social emotional development. And regional councils together, we are able to reach marginalized populations because we all have different people that we connect with. And so Addison recently held a council meeting centering around the needs of migrant families and the challenges they have accessing pre-K. And Chittenden has been working to increase involvement with new Americans and having them better inform the needs of the community. So high five to us all. We're doing great work and I don't want you to forget that. So just back to the summit and what we're thinking today. We really hope that this time will allow us to learn from each other and learn what's going on in other regions and how we can better support each other and cross-pollinate ideas. I'm just gonna ask Darla to quickly throw up the priority map if you don't mind. Each year, we as a region choose 2 of what we think are the biggest needs or challenges that the region is facing. So you will see what it is right here. And these come from your professional experience working with children and families, and then we compile it all into this beautiful map, which is used to inform state priorities, and we print this in the State of Vermont Children Report, which comes out annually. The map not only shows the themes and where there's alignment in regional priorities, but it's also a unique regional variation and reminds us that we're all doing important work, and it's important to start at the regional councils as the experts on the ground and who know the needs of kids and families, and use that to inform the rest of the BBF network to elevate these priorities. So thank you, Darla, for sharing that. So now I'm going to move us on to our small groups. So we're going to break out into Zoom rooms. In a minute, you'll get a chance to join a room. And during this, we're going to talk about with people from across the state. It's going to be completely random, and you'll hopefully have people from all across the state. We're going to ask you to reflect on 2 questions. Don't feel like you have to remember these, but I'm going to read them to you, and then we'll post them in the chat when we get into the Zoom rooms. So the first question is, what is one issue your region prioritized over the last year, and what have you done to impact this issue? And the second question is, what do we have to learn from each other, and how can these ideas be shared across the state? So we'll have about 20 minutes to discuss this. And so we likely won't have a chance for everybody to say everything that they want, but I really want you to pick 1 or 2 ideas and really let the brainstorming happen. This is a chance for us to get excited and learn from people across the state. We also will give you a 5-minute warning, so you have a chance to wrap things up. And there'll be a BBF staff person in your breakout room in case you have any questions that can help guide you. So Dora, when you're all ready, do you want to invite us into the Zoom rooms? So click join when you can.
Apologies to my group. We definitely missed the 5-minute warning. I don't know about everybody else. All right. Well, I want to take a minute and welcome folks back to the much larger virtual space. I was so excited and thrilled to see representation across so many councils and so many parts of the state, to be able to hear what folks are really excited about and things that you're struggling with. And, as we're coming back into this group, I would love to hear from a few folks from different groups. What were you most excited to hear about? Or was there something that you learned from another council member that you either want to take away and bring back, or you think may be important for the whole group to hear because they're not the only person or group dealing with that same challenge? So if you'd like to weigh in, I'd love to see some virtual hands. Go ahead, Matthew.
Yes, and my group of, it was communication. It was, how to get, the word out to more individuals, parents, providers about, that data that we, represent to them and those families, because it's like a hit and miss. And like Matt Levon said, in our group says, we have a ways to go to build up that communication transparency network so we can actually get that information out as quick as we can. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Others?
Maybe I can speak on behalf of our group. Amazing group. Thank you so much. And the discussion was so rich, and we wish that we have more time. So I think something that really struck me personally and many other people is how we all identified that there is a workforce development in the state. And also how also the state lacks a lot of people. And also how we have this basic need around, housing. But now great ideas are being implemented both at Brattleboro and area around taking all the colleges, transforming them into like housing, and also to be able to attract more people to come, learn, and stay in the state of Vermont. This is such a great idea that I thought it was a great discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ollie. Others? I heard so many amazing examples of the work that's happening across the state, and I would really love for other people to hear about those as well. So please don't feel shy about jumping in.
I could maybe speak for our group. We did, I think the piece that was just mentioned regarding communication was a big deal in that the ability to really bring a broad group of representation of businesses, agencies, organizations regionally to really, with broad knowledge, is unique to the councils, right? So while people sit on various committees here and in these organizations, they have sort of specific sets of work that they're doing and things they're focused on. Whereas it feels broader on the councils in that folks, we have the representation from all of those places. And so we're able to really hone in on and see where work is happening and what's being successful or what's being duplicated or what's being a challenge. And then we have sort of the collective brain power and a resource to figure out how we might address that. So that's sort of unique to the setup of Building Bright Futures in those regional councils.
Sonia, in our group, we talked about something similar about how sometimes a training or a topic will get started in our Bennington Council, and then many of the people who attend that meeting also network in other ways, like starting points networks and things like that. And then the work is continued there or started there, and things flow back and forth in many ways. We also talked about professional development in our councils and how we can provide regionally needed professional development through BBF.
In our group, we also touched on professional development, and Becky shared with us some interesting data around the increase of CCV classes, which I think is fairly significant too. I think Becky's on the screen somewhere, but anyway, we certainly know how important that is. And it's nice to know that, that's been taken advantage of by many, many folks.
Yeah, the data I was sharing was CCV saw a 50% increase in the number of students enrolled in early childhood certificate and degree programs from fall of last year to fall of this year. So about 300 students were enrolled in those programs last fall, and there's about 450 that were enrolled as of this fall, which we do think is largely thanks to some generous scholarship opportunities that were available in Vermont in combination with some of the programs that we all know about as the apprenticeship and teach programs as well.
Thanks, Becky. What I love about this discussion is you're all able to make connections, right? There's a lot of people tackling some of the really challenging problems in so many unique ways. And how can we, as a BBF network, as a network of regional councils, and folks who have eyes and ears on the ground, who are the experts on what's happening for kids and families, how can we, at BBF provide you more of that opportunity to connect with each other, see each other as a network, and be able to collectively strategize, recognizing that there's absolutely regional variation, right? Something that works in Bennington may not work in the Northeast Kingdom, but what are you tackling? What worked and what didn't, so that we aren't seeing that duplication and that we can strategize together. So I'm really excited to have this be the first of hopefully many opportunities, and would love for you all to be thinking about over, the next 30 minutes, the next 45 minutes, how we can do that better. How do we provide the right opportunities for you all to both do incredible work within your regional councils, make other connections, but also elevate that work to other layers of the Building Bright Futures network to make sure that it is used to inform decision making. All right, so now I'm going to transition us to the next portion of today's meeting. And I'll be moderating a roundtable discussion where we've invited guests representing all different layers of the BBF network. So regional council partners, folks representing Vermont Early Childhood Action Plan committees or VCAP committees, and members of the State Advisory Council. And what you'll hear from those folks is that they often sit in multiple levels of the BBF network, but we've invited them to come, recognizing that they have a wealth of experience and expertise. And the purpose of this section is for you all to be able to hear about how our panelists are using data and information that's coming from all the different layers of the network to inform their decision making, to inform how they are creating policy. It's also an opportunity for folks to really see how the BBF network as a whole operates, right? And where those lines of communication are, and where there's opportunities for better and more strategic communication and feedback, right? And so you'll also hear a little bit from them about how they're identifying and using the information that you're prioritizing on the ground. And they'll also talk a little bit about our collective hopes and their dreams for the early childhood system. So I'm going to give a brief round of instructions, first for the panelists, and then for everyone that's considered a viewer or a participant. So first, for our panelists, I'm going to invite you to respond to 3 different questions in the next 30 minutes. And I'm going to ask one member of my team to please put those 3 questions in the chat now in the order that we're asking them. And so what I'll ask you to do is I'm going to call on each panelist to respond to a specific question. And the first time that I ask you to respond to the question, I want you to introduce yourself, including your name, your position, and which levels of the BBF network you are a part of. And then I'll ask you to keep your response or your remarks on that question to 3 minutes. So you'll have 3 minutes to respond to that question. And I know you all just sat in small groups, so if you're able to bring in what you heard to formulate your response, please do so. And if I don't ask you to respond to a specific question, but you're really excited about it, I want you to either raise your hands and I'll open the floor for discussion, or you can put it in the chat. So instructions for folks who are not on the panel, our viewers and everybody else who's in the virtual room for the summit. As I'm asking the panelists to respond to each question, I want to hear from you in the chat, right? So how would you respond to that exact same question? How would you respond, and what are your reflections? And do you have follow-up questions? And if we have time, we can open the floor for some of those additional questions, although given the short amount of time, I'm not sure we'll be able to get that going. So if there aren't any questions from our panelists, I'd like to have each of our panelists pinned so that we're consistently seeing them on the screen. And we'll get started with the first question. So question 1 is, how has your work with the BBF network improved how you serve kids and families? And is there a highlight that you can share? An example project, initiative, how you met a need in a region? How has your participation through some layer of the BBF network informed your work? And I want to start with Carmina, if you are feeling ready to respond to that question.
I am feeling very ready to respond to that question. Hi, everyone. My name is Carmina. It is really great to see everyone. I'm an outreach specialist with Vermont 211, covering the eastern half of the state. And I wear many other hats, including a crown in Southeast Vermont, as many are aware. And the councils have had a huge impact on the work that I do with children and families, I've worked with children and families in different capacities for almost 20 years. And I saw some really amazing work in 2020 and 2021 because of these councils, and I'm excited to share about that. First of all, with 211, we provide information and referral regarding health and human services. And so it's really important on all of the councils that I serve on, which is 5, to make sure that children and families have access to resources 24/7. So all of my councils have been amazing and incredibly supportive about making sure that I know about events that are happening or opportunities or being 211 ambassadors and getting the information out, along with our Help Me Grow program as well, which is specifically for children and families 8 and under. So big kudos to all of you and a round of applause because you've made it possible for me to reach hundreds of families in the last couple of years, and it's been truly amazing. The second story that I want to share about, it was a pretty big deal for me in my career with Child Protective Services. One of my other hats was working with foster and kinship families for almost 8 years, up until a month ago. And working with those families, it was my responsibility to make sure that Vermont's children had homes when their biological home wasn't safe. And I had one really tough case that I had never seen before where we couldn't find a home for one particular child. It can also get really tricky because we want to make sure that we maintain confidentiality. So I was trying to get really creative, brought this issue to all of the councils numerous times, 1 for this specific child and 2 because there's a huge need statewide for foster homes. And we were coming to that point of not knowing what to do. And so I asked one of our regional coordinators, hey, would you mind spreading the word about this particular issue? I know it's a little unconventional, but I think that this might be an opportunity. Are you able and willing to help? And that coordinator said, absolutely. It was Ellen. And within hours, I had numerous responses for homes for that child that we couldn't find homes for months. So BBF is making a huge difference. I'm very proud to be a part of the councils, and I appreciate you giving me the time to speak today. Thank you.
Armina, thank you so much for being here and for serving on 5 councils. And it really, it shows some of the opportunity for us to be able to share lessons learned and be thinking really strategically about how we support kids and families. And what an incredible couple of examples. So thank you. Next up is Miranda Gray. Miranda, are you in a position to be able to respond to the question?
I am. Thank you, Morgan. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Miranda Gray. I'm the Interim Deputy Commissioner for the Child Development Division, and I sit on the SAC and the ECICT committees. So I think I'll start with the first part of that question, which was how is working with the BBF network improved how you serve children and families? I'm still very new to this field. I've hit month 9, and it's been critical for me to work with BBF, in particular Morgan as the executive director, to be grounded in the work that has already been done within the VCAP, the Vermont Early Childhood Action Plan, to understand what is the vision that you all have already outlined and the strategic plan that we have for the early childhood system, as well as the priorities that have been identified by you regional experts. So I think, you know, I can't emphasize enough just how important BBF has been to me as someone that is new to this field. And then some highlights for me to share. You know, I think today is an example of a highlight for me. It is being able to hear from those in the regions. And so this was another opportunity. Working with BBF has allowed me to be able to join a number of meetings, for them to host meetings or convenings that the Child Development Division, when we have a message that we would like to be able to share. And it's provided me, most importantly, a lot of time to be able to listen to what you all have to say in the field. And what was very clear very quickly for me is just the importance of equitable access to care and creating seamless systems of support for children and families. And I understand that there are some large system level issues that make it challenging to serve families in ways we need and we'd like to, including data. So right now, the Child Development Division is working with BBF in multiple ways to address data and equitable access to services. One of those ways is BBF is supporting our Children Integrated Services Unit within the Child Development Division to dive into our data, to examine the barriers and challenges and strengths of CIS, as well as family and provider and director perspectives of the impact of CIS. This work will support the state's broader effort through the Vermont Child Care and Early Childhood Education Systems Analysis that is underway right now to understand how we can best move forward in meeting the needs of kids and families. Another example is how Building Bright Futures has supported my team, as well as data stewards from the Agency of Education, to recommit to the integrated early childhood data through meetings focused on continued progress on the statewide longitudinal data system, and developing a process for master data management and the creation of unique identifiers. So really being able to track a child from the moment they hit one of our systems up through their high school years. This work will support Vermont's ability to show longitudinal outcomes for children by disaggregating, by marginalizing characteristics once the system is finalized. And the third example I'd love to give is, and I've already spoken to this some, but just want to reflect back because to show my appreciation, is just how BBF has consistently supported the Child Development Division to understand the needs and priorities of children's families and educators and providers by co-hosting forums, elevating needs and challenges, and providing qualitative and quantitative data to support our decision making. Some of these examples are when we were launching our coronavirus response and relief Supplemental Appropriations Act, and currently our American Rescue Plan Act funds, being able to have convenings where we could talk about, here's what we can do with this money, and to be able to have people tell us, and this is what we need. So I too would like to express my gratitude for this opportunity to speak today, to really be able to share the importance that BBF brings to CDD, and in particular, my position here as the Deputy Commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miranda. And I hope what folks are seeing is that we're trying to make sure that we have panelists who represent a series of sectors and layers of the BBF network to see how this work is influencing their ability to execute their role, right? And how it's all connected. So our next panelist is Jessica Brumstead from the House of Representatives.
Thank you, Morgan, and thank you, Linda, for inviting me to participate today in this panel. So I'm a state legislator from Shelburne and St. George, which is in Chittenden County. It's District 5-2. And this is my 6th year in the legislature and my 4th year on the State Advisory Council for Building Bright Futures. And I'm also a member of the Joint House Government Accountability Committee, where we really look at how are we doing with the legislation we pass? Does it work and does it make sense? And what is the data showing us? And there's nothing more helpful in that work than the work that you all are doing by helping us to be connected with what is going on out there throughout all of the regions. So I just want to start by saying that, and that as a legislator, nothing is more important to us than understanding how the entire state feels about issues. We often, figure out what we know about issues based on our own experiences, our friends and our family and our own children, right? I have 4 children and 8 grandchildren. So I hear a lot about what's going on in the field, but I don't hear a lot about what's going on in the various regions that all of you represent. And when I first started out working on childcare, I decided to do a tour with the Agency of Education, with the House Education Committee. I'm on the House Human Services Committee, and we went all over. I went to St. Johnsbury, Newport, Vergennes, Middlebury, and of course Burlington to tour childcare centers and school programs that had after school programs. And at the very end, I was in Middlebury, and that evening there was a regional council meeting that was mostly made up of Addison County folks, and it was all families from all over Addison County, and it was facilitated by one of the regional councils, and I can't remember the woman's name, but I do remember the information that I learned that night. about how the after school program was working, how those 10 hours were just not doing it. And that having, I actually wrote down some of the issues that came up that just really struck me. The 10 hours of funds is great if you can access those dollars, that we need a mixed delivery system, that more choice to cross town and county lines is needed, that 2 hours a day is difficult for drop-offs and pickups. And what about transportation? And a specific issue that came out really only happening in the edges of Addison County were due to the lack of workforce. So those were things back 3.5, 4 years ago that I learned about and immediately said, I want to be involved in Building Bright Futures, because they're helping us as legislators to know, how do we fix legislation maybe that we've already passed, but even better, how do we write legislation that makes more sense for all of us in Vermont so that it's important to everyone. And so that was my example. I just can't say enough. The importance of this information just can't be understated. A data-informed system is not just necessary for good legislation. It is imperative, as we have all learned over the years. The Building Bright Futures Network and regional councils provide an incredible opportunity to build integrated data-informed system. And we've seen it. It's really beginning to work. I feel like a little bit like a car salesman, and I don't mean to be, but I can't tell you enough how my work in the Human Services Committee and my colleagues in that committee, I mean, even if you think about our committee, we don't have the whole state there, right? We have 4 of our members are from Chittenden County. 2 of our members are from Franklin County. 2 of our members are from Washington County. 2 are from Windham, and 1 is from Lamoille. But there's a lot of the state that's left out of that. And so your work in the regions, and if I were to think about what should be in the future, it's to get more of my colleagues to be at those regional council meetings in their districts and in other areas, right? So we can all see it. And that's what's so wonderful about the virtual nature of this meeting and so many other meetings that Building Bright Futures was quick to jump into. They didn't just say, we're not going to be meeting, we're going to be doing this virtually so we can continue to inform others and help work together. So many of us are grateful for that work. And so thank you for having me or including me today.
Thank you so much, Jessica. I think it's really important for folks to understand how your committee and how you and other members of our legislature who serve on the State Advisory Council are involved, how you use that information, and that you're really seeking it out and using the BBF network as a really key mechanism to informing your decision making. So thank you for being here.
And I just add to that, Morgan, one quick other thing. If you look around at other areas that my colleagues deal with and other committees, things like healthcare, what do they have? They have a hospital network, but they don't ever talk to the public about how things are going. What about broadband or climate change? Or, I mean, the list, I sat here today thinking about coming and thinking, what do we have to know what's going on in the state, to hear from the ground what's happening? We really don't have that much. And so I feel lucky to be in an area where we have Building Bright Futures.
Thank you so much, Jessica. All right, so I want to transition to the second question and ask it of a couple of different panelists. So the second question is, what are the opportunities to strengthen our early childhood system, and really doing that through coordination, strategizing, and addressing issues within regions across the BBF network? And in doing that, how is that informing your work? And I'd like to ask Sonia if you'd be willing to go first on this one.
Sure. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Sonia Raymond, and I own Apple Tree Learning Centers in Stowe. I also have been a longstanding member on the Lamoille Building Bright Futures Council, and I serve on several statewide committees around workforce development, professionalizing the workforce, advocacy pieces, coordinating of conferences for professional development, etc. So, you know, I would say the opportunities are almost endless, in my opinion, within BBF as I see it originally being designed. I remember when it came into being, it was just being brought to Vermont and as a concept. And I think we are at a point where we are really honing in on the true intention of what building bright futures means and what it's intended to do for early childhood, right, in the system and families and children. And I see, you know, regionally, the work that we do is so important, in my opinion, because as I've said before, we really hold the broadest group of people that I've ever been part of, you know, and in the hundreds of committees that I've served on over the years in my various roles in early childhood. And I have seen there's almost no challenge, very few challenges that our region has faced that we haven't been able to actually take a look at it and bring it to the council, talk about it, figure out where we go to get either more information, get resources, get funding. Is it something that needs to go up the chain, if you will, right? From, you know, should our coordinator bring it to the, you know, greater meetings with all the other coordinators? Should it go up to somebody like Morgan? Is that then something that should, you know, be brought forward? You know, I know Building Bright Futures can't advocate, but we can as members. So, you know, I just see it as this key pin, if you will, for early childhood. And we have the ability to bring in key folks, and they don't have to sit on our council. Like, there's a lot of people that we touch and bring in when we need to, right? And when we're trying to tackle a challenge based on our action plan that we have. And so I feel like the opportunities are endless. And I think they're also key to taking advantage of these opportunities as we advocate for more funding in the early childhood system for families and children. We're going to need to be efficient about this and effective about this. And we need to work and coordinate so we don't duplicate like we have a history of doing in all facts, you know, in all fashions of this. And also so that, you know, we make the most effective use of the money that we do get. And I think, you know, for me in the work that I've done, there's been so many opportunities and to take the information that I gain or the resources that I learn about just being on the council and working with the council to affect a change on a committee that I'm on, bringing the information to them. They then find a resource that I bring back to the council. So it really becomes a very nice cycle of working through, you know, strategizing and working through challenges and issues that are facing, you know, all families, children, and even early childhood programs.
Thank you so much, Sonia. And it really speaks to the strength of having such a robust network of partners that's coming together, whether it's monthly, annually, and that you are all connected to so many other things, right? It really is this beautiful network and way to share information, identify data and needs, and be able to actually create change in the lives of kids and families. So thank you. Diane, do you want to tackle that question next?
Hi, I'm Diane Nichols-Fleming. I'm the Early Childhood Program Coordinator for North Country Supervisory Union. I'm also on the Vermont Early Childhood Advocacy Alliance. I'm on the Early Learning and Development Committee for BBF, as well as then the Early Childhood Systems Analysis group as well. Have a long history in working in Washington County for many years, and then taking this position up here in Newport. And BBF has been that great connector for me, so that we're able to see such a diverse level of skills, of experience, of involvement in our community with our children and our families. That is the key place to go. That's the table to sit at. It's the quickest way to get up to speed as to what's been done, what's being done, and what needs to be done. And so this has been a tremendous opportunity for me to build some lasting relationships with colleagues and to have those conversations about how do we do this work. We have to be, unfortunately in our field, we have to be very good with very little. And, but then the rewards are very great. And so that's what keeps us coming, is because of that reward. And saying, you know, we need more for our families. We need more for our children. It's an incredibly diverse group that will come to the table. We all have the same vocabulary, which makes it easier. You don't have to start back at square one and, you know, answering, yes, I am very patient. Yes, I love children. Now let's move on. And so that has been it's great to just hit the ground running and to really be exploring what are those needs. Some of the challenges I have seen from our work too, though, is being in the Northeast Kingdom, is that we get tapped sometimes for trying out things because we're all game and we're ready to jump in, but then sometimes the bureaucracy stops what we're able to do. And so we on our council will spin our wheels a little bit, and finally we just go a little rogue and start the work. And so it's always, poor Linda is going to be like emailing me later, but anyway, but we do it in a very kind, caring way. But the passion is there, that we know what needs to be done, and we also know we need to do it. And so as an example of the early MTSS pilot work, we knew there wasn't just one person who could do it. There was such a variety of gems in our area that were able to do this work. And so we were able to tap in, organize them, and get different pieces done, and then to fit and match, and then checking in as to where do we go next. We've learned from this, how do we move next? It's always a balancing work. As Sonia was saying, there's a lot of history in our state of this work. So it's about balancing that history with what we know now needs to happen for our families. So much is in flux, and we are that consistent driver of what we know our communities have tried, what our communities are in need of, and how, and ways that we can do that. And also wanting to be that advocate and voice that it shouldn't be a second thought. It should be the first thought. It should be that funding thought. It should be that opportunity. Our kids deserve this. And so BBF is that voice that's always there, that people know to go to and to be part of. And so we have seen it great work of nurturing. It's, you know, if it's a tree, those roots have been deep, BBF in many of its different names, and it's growing stronger and stronger, but we do need to nurture it. We do need to feed it. And we have to be careful that we don't overcorrect and put too stringent of a fence around that tree, that we need to learn from what is going on. But we have such an incredible wealth of people who care, have great passion and energy to make and work in partnership with our families. And to me, BBF is what really sets that stage. And I am so glad I'm a part of that.
Thank you so much, Diane. And your mention of early multi-tiered systems of support is such an important example, because your council came together, identified this need and priority, had done so much work in this area and had momentum, and actually created a letter and sent that to another level of our BBF network, the Early Childhood Interagency Coordinating Team, who are the public or the agency leaders of our State Advisory Council. So it's really exciting to see how the different levels of our network are coordinating, collaborating, and informing each other. Before we go on to the last question about folks' hopes and dreams for the future, I want to turn it over to one of our private philanthropic partners who also serves on our state advisory council, Gale, to talk about how being a part of this network informs his ability to make decisions and think about funding.
Hi, thanks, Morgan. I'm Eddie Gale. I work with the A.D. Henderson Foundation. It's a significant supporter of early care and education in the state. And we are in the business of investing in great projects that do great things for children. And the two ways that the regional councils help us do that, one is to help the development of great projects, and then two, help me to market those to my board. And a couple of examples that we've recently been involved with, the Old Stonehouse Museum in Brownington, after the murder of George Floyd, so many of us have realized we need to be doing more about racial equity. They really wanted to jump in and think in terms of how can they do better, how can we do better work related to professional development for early care and education in the issues of equity. And Old Stonehouse on its own wasn't going to be able to come up with something that was compelling for us. But when they're working with Northeast Kingdom Community Action, when they're working with Linda Menkowitz, when they're working with their school districts and the local network of childcare providers, they could come up with something that was really compelling for us that we were able to fund and that I was able to sell to my board. And similar piece, Springfield Area Parent-Child Center project we're working on right now. They previously had a Learning Together program, which was for young parents who were no longer in high school and were parenting of young children. And that program had come to an end due to different lapses. Springfield Area Parent-Child Center wanted to bring it back. We needed to be convinced that for whatever reason the program came to a close previously, that was not going to happen again, and indeed that it could thrive. And because of their close work with their regional council, with the Reach Out program, with school districts, with others who could be supportive of this program, one, they came up with a great project, and two, I was able to go to my board and say, we think that they've got something really compelling going on here. And ideally we'll be able to support it, but I can't give a bankable word on that until January when my board meets.
Thank you so much, Eddie. All right, so we're transitioning into our last question, recognizing that we're already at time. So the final question is, as we enter 2022, what are your hopes for the future of the work of the councils and the committees that you're serving? And so what I'd like to do is have our last three panelists respond verbally to that question, but I'd love for everybody who's a part of a council, of a program through Building Bright Futures to respond to this in the chat bar as well. So let's start with Cheryl. What is your one hope for the future of the council?
Okay. I'm Cheryl Huntley. I'm the director of the Youth and Family Programs at the Counseling Service in Middlebury. So I sit on the Addison County BBF group and have for many years. And I'm a fan of systems work. There's no doubt about it. I believe strongly in it. And I would say that I think it's most effective when we also break it down into small steps. It's really important to sort of what I call dreaming in the same direction and have a shared vision. But it's equally important to be able to say, things like, if we believe in family engagement, what does that mean I'm going to do tomorrow? What does that mean I'm going to do today in a very small way? And I've always felt like that collective impact idea is really the place where we make change. If we're all doing our thing every single day, you begin to change systems, and that's really important. I think going forward, that's a huge piece of what we need to look at. I think we need to be very kind of respectful and patient with ourselves that we're in the middle of COVID, and we're as a mental health person, I would say we're in a state of prolonged stress at this point. And when we're all in prolonged stress, we don't do so well. We get cranky and we don't think as clearly and we forget things, and we can feel overwhelmed easily. It doesn't take much some days, and kids are no different. And I think we need to respect that. And I think that we need to be cautious and conscious as we go forward of the need to try to reduce that stress and work slowly together on systems issues and continue to do the change pieces. But I think that part of our obligation going forward is to create space for ourselves so that we're can make spaces for kids that are create connections, that have routine, that have predictability, that have some consistency. And those are the things that will help us heal from this pandemic and help the kids heal as well, and to have us give us the resiliency and the basis to keep doing this work going forward. I think we just have to respect that part of it. I think early childhood can be particularly good at that, and we need to just sort of take time to hold each other accountable for going slowly and taking care of each other in the middle of this as well. So I think I'll just stop there. I do think that part of our role as leaders is to have some responsibility for hope. And that sounds a little corny maybe, but I think hope and connection are huge pieces of what we need right now. And I think we're in a place to do that for each other. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. And I agree, a very inspiring way to close the meeting. Becca, you are up next. What is your one vision for the council and this network?
It's such a huge question. So hi, everyone. I'm Becca Webb. I'm an early childhood special educator and Act 166 coordinator. I actively sit on the Lamoille and Central Vermont committees, the Outcomes and Accountability VCAP team, and I'm a member of the State Advisory Council. And so I think echoing everybody throughout this summit, what I see as the hope going into 2022 is we've put so much effort on a broad base across the field in gathering really solid recommendations, right, that just came out and we approved. And I think for me, it's harnessing that collective energy and capacity and eclectic membership that we have, and really using it to move us forward. This is hard work. And for me, BBF is the one place where we have so many different roles and we all have the passion and the drive to really impact the system across, and I can't remember who said it before, but like we have this common language. So that's my goal.
Thank you, Becca. All right, I'm excited to have our last panelist respond to this question. So Chloe Leary, who is the co-chair of the State Advisory Council and one of my primary mentors.
Oh,
go ahead.
Oh, thanks, Morgan. I'm all flustered now. So I'm Chloe Leary, I'm the Executive Director of the Winston Prouty Center in Brattleboro. I have been involved with BBF my whole time here, which is 14 plus years. So my hope for 2022 is that we live the promise of what BBF has to offer us. I think we've made great strides. Sonia, you said something about, I think we're finally getting to the intention of what we meant to do. I certainly see signs of that, and I think we have more to do. So Cheryl, I certainly appreciate you mentioning collective impact. That's really the promise of BBF, and I hope we make great progress on that in this next year. And because we have a lot coming at us. So I think we're stronger together. The connections, the networking is really, and that the feedback loop from the field to the system and back again is really, I think, one of the most valuable things we have. So my hope is that we leverage that and we keep making progress on the promise of BBF.
Thank you so much, Chloe. All right, for the sake of time, I'm going to forego any closing remarks I have and turn it over to two of my regional managers, Ali and Linda.
Yes, thank you. I think this has been an amazing set of discussions right here. But as you know, all of these accomplishments, it's possible because we have had people who are new and also people who are old. I'm saying we're talking about veterans and also new people, members of the council. So thank you so much for your commitment to improving the lives of children and families through collective work of the regional councils. It would be beneficial for us also to celebrate the wisdom here and the set of experiences within BBF regional council members. So I'm going now to ask you a quick question, right? For people who have been here for over 20 years, helping BBF or the regional council, please write your name on the chat. 20 years or more, you've been included in this amazing work that BBF does. Write your name, right? We're gonna take it a couple seconds, right? If you don't have any, then maybe let's talk about those who've been here 15 years, right? Or more. Anybody, you can write your name. You've been around, you've been helping BBF for 50 years or more. Already we have a lot of people. Oh my, this is amazing. Now, after 15 people, 15 years, let's talk about 10 years and more. Anybody who's been here 10 years and more, please write your name. This is just great. And those who are new, such as me, right? You've been here 5 years or less. Please write your name. And you help the regional councils in one way or the other. This is just so amazing. Thank you so much for your leadership and for all you do. And I'm going to now give the floor to Linda.
Thank you, Ollie. As we're at the end of our time together, I want to bring your attention to the link in the chat box. The link is to the evaluation, and we encourage you to complete that because we really value your feedback. You'll also receive notes from today's summit, which hopefully will provide you with information to continue these conversations that were started here today as regional councils start to meet again in January. For me today, the remarks, the conversation, the panel, the small group discussions have been really inspiring. And I know we have challenges and opportunities ahead. And with the collective action of the regional councils, the state advisory council and VCAP committees, we will continue to meet those challenges and take advantage of the opportunities on behalf of the children and families in our state. So thank you so much for your participation today and for your ongoing commitment to this work. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chloe. Thanks all.